Today, I'm bringing you a story that's nothing short of extraordinary, an event that has left people wondering about fate, intuition, and the mysteries of life. Imagine being on an airplane, buckled in, ready for takeoff, when suddenly a man barges onto the plane, yelling at the top of his lungs, "Don't take off! The plane is going to crash." In an instant, everything changes, and what was supposed to be a routine flight becomes a day filled with questions, tension, and chills down your spine. Let's take a closer look at what happened on this unbelievable day. The passengers were already seated, the flight attendants were performing their safety checks, and everyone was anticipating a smooth departure. For some, it was just another work trip. For others, it was a holiday getaway. But everything took an unexpected turn when, out of nowhere, a man stumbled onto the plane, shouting his warning with urgency and fear. He was clearly out of place, a man with a rough appearance, likely homeless by the look of his worn clothing and unkempt hair. His presence stood out, his face a mixture of panic and desperation as he looked around at the seated passengers, urging them to listen. "Don't take off," he kept shouting. "If this plane takes off, it's going to crash." His voice was raw and desperate, and the emotion behind his words gave everyone pause. Security and flight attendants quickly moved in, trying to contain the situation. They attempted to calm him down, to escort him off the plane, but he was determined to warn the passengers. He shouted to anyone who would listen, repeating over and over, "I'm telling you, this plane isn't safe. Don't take off." By now, passengers were looking at each other with confusion and fear. Some thought he was simply a man having a mental health crisis. Others weren't so sure. A few even began to consider his warning, wondering if there was any truth to his words. As he continued to plead with the passengers, it became clear that he genuinely believed what he was saying. His eyes were wide, his hands trembling, and there was something about his tone that made people uncomfortable in a way that was hard to ignore. He wasn't just shouting aimlessly, he seemed convinced that he was delivering a message that could save lives. But eventually, security and flight crew managed to remove him from the plane. He was escorted off, still yelling warnings as he disappeared down the aisle and off the plane. Now, with the disturbance seemingly behind them, the airline staff did their best to reassure everyone on board. They explained that the man likely wasn't in a stable state of mind, that there was no real threat to the flight's safety, and that everything was proceeding as planned. Still, a nervous tension lingered in the cabin. Even as the flight attendants resumed their final checks and the captain prepared for takeoff, the memory of the man's warning echoed in the minds of many passengers. A few of them couldn't shake the unease. They weighed the risks, the warning ringing in their ears, and finally, a handful of passengers decided they couldn't go through with it. They left the plane, opting to reschedule their flights, unwilling to take any chances after the bizarre encounter. For those who stayed, however, the flight soon proceeded as planned, and eventually, the plane took off. But just as the plane reached cruising altitude, something unexpected happened. A strange vibration began to shake the aircraft, and the lights flickered for a moment. There was a brief pause, and then the captain came on the intercom. His voice was calm and reassuring as he informed everyone that they were experiencing a minor technical issue. He explained that it wasn't anything to worry about, but they would be making an emergency landing at a nearby airport as a precaution. Despite his calm tone, a chill went through the cabin. People's minds raced back to the man's warning. Was it possible that he somehow knew this would happen? Could he have had a premonition, or was it all just an incredibly strange coincidence? The atmosphere in the plane was tense, with passengers whispering to one another, visibly uneasy despite the captain's assurances. For some, the memory of the man's frantic pleas was now even more unsettling, as the reality of the situation began to sink in. As the plane descended toward the airport, people braced themselves. When the wheels touched down, relief flooded the cabin and the plane came to a safe stop. Passengers clapped and cheered, grateful to be safely on the ground, but the events of the day left them with a deep sense of wonder and mystery. After disembarking, word spread quickly. The incident became a headline story, capturing public attention and sparking intense curiosity. People wanted to know more about the man who had burst onto that plane, yelling warnings that seemed all too prescient. News outlets began investigating, and the internet buzzed with theories and questions. Some people believed the man had simply experienced a mental health episode. Others felt there was something supernatural at play, that he'd somehow foreseen the events about to unfold. The story became a topic of debate and intrigue, with everyone forming their own opinions about what had happened that day. The airline later released a statement confirming that the technical issue on the plane had been minor and that at no point had the passengers been in serious danger. But for those who were on board, and even for those who read about the event afterward, the story remained haunting. The memory of the man's desperate warning stuck with them, and they couldn't help but wonder if, in some way, he had known something they didn't. It's a story that raises questions about fate, intuition, and the unknown. How could a man with no apparent knowledge of the plane's condition make such an eerily accurate prediction? Was it all just a coincidence, or was there something deeper, something beyond our understanding? This event serves as a reminder that sometimes we encounter situations that defy explanation. We often like to believe that everything can be understood, that science and logic can explain all phenomena. But stories like this one remind us that there may still be mysteries out there, things that we can't easily categorize or understand. Some might call it fate, others might call it intuition, a heightened sense that alerts us to dangers that aren't immediately visible. Whatever it was, it left a powerful impression on everyone who experienced it. In the days that followed, the story continued to circulate. Some people claimed that they too had experienced moments where they felt something inexplicable, a sudden urge to take a different path or avoid a certain place, only to later find that they had narrowly avoided danger. It made people think about the power of intuition, that gut feeling that sometimes urges us to act in ways we can't fully explain. Many people began to reflect on moments in their own lives when they had experienced similar feelings, perhaps a moment when they felt compelled to make an unusual choice or take a step back, only to later realize that it had kept them safe. In the end, the homeless man's warning remains a mystery. Perhaps he had a moment of clarity, a feeling so strong that he felt compelled to act on it, regardless of how others might perceive him. Or perhaps it was just an astonishing coincidence. Whatever the truth may be, the event left an impact, becoming one of those rare moments that linger in people's memories and spark wonder about the unknown. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more tales of intrigue and mystery, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated. And if you've ever experienced something that defied explanation, feel free to share it in the comments below. We'd love to hear your stories. Until next time, keep an open mind, trust your instincts, and remember that sometimes life's greatest mysteries are found in the moments we least expect.